Alright, time for the matrix multiplication worksheet where you have to multiply matrices. And to do that, make sure you take each item in each row in the first and times it by each item in the second, and each item in the columns of each second one. And if there's multiple things in the row and multiple things in the column, you need to add those products. So let's take this first one. It's going to be the 2 times the 5. And that's it for that entry, because there's not other items there. And we're going to do 2 times the 2 for my next entry over here. And then we're going to do 2 times 5 to get that first entry for my second row, and times the 2's together to get my second entry on my second row. And if you actually do that, you'll get 10, 4, 10, 4. And that's just the first one. Moving on to the next one, you take each row and times it by each column and add the products. So when I do that, I'm going to get negative 3 times 4 plus 4 times negative 2. And that's just going to be the first entry. And then you do my row times the column. And that's going to give me negative 3 times the 5 and 4 times the 3 when you add them together. And that's the only row this is, because this one only has one row. And so when I do that multiplication and add them up, I'm going to get negative 12 plus negative 8, which is negative 20. And right here, negative 15 plus 12 is going to give me negative 3. And that's my matrix for 2. Moving on to 3, I need to do each row times each column and add their products. So I'm going to get 2 times 5 plus negative 1 times 1. And that's it for this one. There's only one column, so I'm going to only have one column's worth in my resulting matrix. And now I'm going to take my second row and times by the only column there is, 0 times the 5 plus negative 4 times the 1. And when you do that, you're going to get 2 times 5, which is 10, plus negative 1, it's going to give me 9, and then 0 plus negative 4 is just going to give you negative 4. So that's my resulting matrix. Moving on to 4, each row times each column, but you'll notice each row has 2 entries, and each column only has 1. And so there are not enough entries in my second matrix to actually do the multiplication, so this is undefined. Moving on to 5, each row times each column, but there are not enough items in my row to match the number of items in the column in the second one, so this one is also undefined. Moving on to 6, this is just a 2 by 2 times a 2 by 2, which is pretty standard, and we can do that. Let me get this out. Each row times each column, the corresponding entries are going to be multiplied together, and then you add their products. You'll get 4 times negative 2 plus 5 times 3. And that's just going to be for first one. First row times second column is going to give me 4 times 3 plus 5 times negative 3. And then second row times first column is going to give me negative 4 times negative 2 plus 4 times 3. And then you're going to have second row times second column, which will give me negative 4 times 3 plus 4 times negative 3. So here's my matrix order. None of the calculations have been done yet. But I'm going to do them now. 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. 5 times 3 is 15. Negative 8 plus 15 is 7. Next one, 4 times 3 is 12. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. Positive 12 plus negative 15 is negative 3. On my next one, negative 4 times negative 2 is 8. 4 times 3 is 12. 8 plus 12 is 20. And then my last one, negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. And 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. So add that together, it will give you negative 24. And there's my matrix for 6. Moving on to 7, remember each row times each column, and then add the products. Well, there's only one entry on each, and so we're going to do 6 times 2. Remember, do the row times each column, so we're going to get 6 times negative 4. And then we're going to get negative 4 times 2. And negative 4 times the negative 4. And so here's my resulting matrix. I just need to do the calculations now. 6 times 2 is 12. 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8. And negative 4 times negative 4 is positive 16. There's my matrix. Moving on to 8, this one's a lot like 6, just 2 by 2 being multiplied together, each row times each column. So we're going to have to do negative 4 times 3 plus 5 times 5. And then my next one, first row times second column, and give me negative 4 times 1 plus 5 times negative 3. And then I'm going to move on to my second row times the first column. So negative 4 times 3 plus negative 1 times 5. And then second row times second column, I'm going to get negative 4 times negative 1. That should be a negative there. And then add negative 1 times negative 3. And here's my matrix where none of the calculations have been done yet. We're going to do them now. Negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. 5 times 5 is 25. Negative 12 plus 25 is going to be positive 13. The next one, negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. 5 times negative 3 is negative 15. So positive 4 plus negative 15 is going to give me negative 11. On the next one, negative 4 times 3 is negative 12. We've done that multiple times now. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. So negative 12 plus negative 5 is going to give me negative 17. And my last one, negative 4 times negative 1 is positive 4. Negative 1 times negative 3 is positive 3. So 4 plus 3 is going to give me 7. And that is my resulting matrix for 8. And let's move on to the next one. Okay, on this one, just remember, just do each row times each column. And this one's going to be a little bit bigger than our previous ones because this is a 3 by 2. This is only a 2 by 2. So each row times each column, we're going to do negative 5 times the 2. And then add 2 times the negative 4. Right there. And that's going to be my first item. So now I'm going to do first row times times second column. You get negative 5 times 4 plus 2 times the 3. So 2 times the 3. And now I'm going to do second row times first column to get 3 times 2 plus 2 times negative 4. So 2 times the negative 4, 3 times the 2, that's where those pieces are coming from. Now I'm going to do second row times second column to get 3 times 4 plus 2 times 3. And now I'm going to do the last row times first column, so negative 3 times, that's times 2, plus negative 1 times negative 4. And last row times last column, I'm going to get negative 3 times 4 plus negative 1 times 3. Look closely at this. You'll notice that these columns are going to be the same. Make sure they're the same all the way through if you're doing things in the right order. And that could kind of help you line up things a little bit. Anyway, so there's that. We're now just going to do the calculations. Negative 5 times 2 is negative 10. 2 times negative 4 is negative 8. So I'm going to get negative 18 because negative 10 plus negative 8 is negative 18. And this is going to be negative 20, and that's going to be 6. Negative 20 plus 6 is going to be negative 14. That's 6. That is negative 8. 6 plus negative 8 is negative 2. That is 12. That is 6. 12 plus 6 is 18. This is negative 6. That is positive 4. Negative 6 plus 4 is negative 2. That is negative 12. That's negative 3. Negative 12 plus negative 3 is negative 15. And that is my resulting matrix right there. And I'm going to actually stop there.